Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an after-play show. This is an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, where we tell you all the details of our game so you don't have to listen to it. I'm Sammie, I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and I play Asiri Amoli. The mermaid also uses she, her. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I use he, him pronouns. I play Moogle avatar of Alexander Smog, who also uses he, him pronouns.
We are joined today by Dex.
Hi, my name is Dex Fan. I use he, him pronouns, and my character, Athenos, who is a wolfman embodiment of Athena, also uses he, him pronouns.
We are joined also by Carolyn.
Hello, I'm Carolyn. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I play a miniature horse who thought herself to be a unicorn named Pony, who also uses she, her, hers.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Now that we're all here, Alex, why don't you tell us about the actual play?
Previously, in EFFETE, the party meets the Master and her new Juice at the tourney grounds. Geyser is in a strange, unresponsive state. They discuss what to ask from the Master and land on Lone's hope or Alraune's body. The Master explains that Lone should be, but is not a person, and their hope is still in the world of ages. The Master returns Alraune's body to the sarcophagus and the party to their bedroom. Smog, Asiri, and Pony sneak into the mechanism room while Athenos plans to distract Lone with Geyser. Geyser scrabbles off toward the mechanism room where Tau realizes Lone is. Athenos drags Lone out of the room for questioning while Pony, Asiri, and Smog gather further information about the room and attempt to revive Alraune. Lone shares that Alraune was priestess of a goddess named Cyclia and tells Tau to light a fire under the cog they found. Asiri lights a fire under the cog and sees depictions of the party. Smog finds a place in the room to slot the cog. Asiri performs the magic to revive Alraune, but it fails. Lone, feeling the powerful sound of Asiri's song, enters the room.
Alright, so now that you've heard the actual play, let's do a deep dive into the session. We're back with the Master again! Yay!
I feel like you say yay, but you don't actually like seeing the Master.
Well, Sammie loves the Master. Favorite character of the campaign thus far. Asiri, on the other hand, still sorting out those emotions.
I feel similarly, because I was like, Smog's coming back from the future. Maybe there'll be a different perspective on the Master. Maybe we can finally toy with this Dark Link. No, immediately has his own juice. And they're like, not at all looking like juice. Some weird little crocodile monster. And it's just, I don't know, talking down to the Master all the time now. It's no longer a fear, it's annoyance.
The name Juice 2 confused me for just a second, because I was thinking like it was Juice 2, like Echoes 2, same entity, new form, but really it's more of a Juice Junior, where it's a completely different one.
I totally interpret that as the Master taking a dig at Smog for some reason. I don't know why, but...
To be fair, the 2 and the Junior came from Tau's mouth, and we're not any... The Master's just like, this is juice.
Fair.
They chose violence.
They chose creature from the world of spirit that they brought here for some reason.
Did the Master intend to mean that juice is lost then? Is this potentially what juice has become?
Smog was quick to say that is not what juice looks like now.
Because, like, if Smog could change that much, why couldn't Juice change that much?
Yeah, Juice is like big Athenos size now.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible.
Chumby baby.
No wonder you couldn't be an amalgam with it anymore.
Yeah. Don't want to carry Juice around everywhere.
I mean, Juice is just carrying you at that point, I think.
Yeah. It would be hard to draw.
Yeah.
That's the true issue come out.
The truth come out.
How do you get a great representation of Smog on that scale?
You can't, no.
Just like shrink all of Sammie's drawings.
You could just scale Juice around my little pixel edit of Mont Blanc for Smog.
Yeah. I don't want to do that. Siri has changing interpretations of the master.
Yeah, you left us on red with that. You're like, I'm going to talk to you about this later, Dan. You don't want to spoil something for the rest of us.
I'm sort of starting to put the pieces together of where I want a Siri to go, and I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet, so I'm not going to. But a lot of what happened this session has put those gears in motion. That's a pun, unintentionally.
I should look through the list of playbooks and just like call out a playbook. Which one do I think it could be?
Well, it'll be hard because I haven't picked one yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking between several, so I have narrowed it down a little bit, but I haven't concretely decided.
God, it would be so funny if you became the other.
I don't even know how that would work in this context.
I mean, you were immediately when Smog came back like, Siri wanted all of this, or this is what Siri is supposed to be, and it's confusing to see it play out immediately. So that's what I was thinking.
That's a good point, but no.
We were separated temporarily, and y'all did try to start like talking about what we were actually going to do, but we were going to trade for. As a player and as Smog, like, let's sneak on off to the rest of the group and talk together, because I figured it would save in character time talking.
This session was very important for regrouping everybody together and getting us on the same page. Now is the point we finally started putting what scant details we had together to formulate a congruent plan.
Yeah, I continue to be stupid. I am not the, like, find out what's going on kind of person. Apparently, I'm not the find out what's going on kind of person.
I feel like both Pony and Athenos had some good, just complete airbrain moments this session.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Pony was trying to figure out what she was seeing in the sarcophagus.
I was like, I can't figure out what's going on in this world, so I'm going to bully this poor robot. And hopefully he gives me some answers.
Yes, Athenos was like, yes, violence is the answer.
Violence is the answer. He has many, many years knowledge of violence. He's the answer. So, I was just like, this is just one of those times.
You weren't around when we were finally like getting around to rolling links with everybody else. So we have what we think is the first dark link with Athenos from Smog, because he was like, oh, I forgot how like brash and violent this aspect of Athenos can be, and just waiting for the change to happen.
So funny.
But yeah, I don't think anybody else owned up to having a dark link with Athenos ever.
I think mine has entirely been either heart or mastery up to this point.
Pony has heart, and it's locked.
We did spend a while debating what we were actually going to ask for, and putting the pieces together, frankly. Pretty sure it was Tao who mentioned Alraune's body first.
An interesting route. Maybe I'll have to pick Zach's brain about that. I don't know if that was like an inspired thing, but at least from my perspective, Tao doesn't really have a body, I guess. It's more of just a projection. So why are they asking about a body? Unless they're really focused on it? I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
And there's also just the context of the conversation. We were talking about a spirit hanging around there, and name on the sarcophagus. It seems easy to put two and two together, even if you're not focused on bodily existence.
I wish I wasn't focused on bodily existence.
Don't we all?
But do you wish you were a Vocaloid?
Absolutely not.
You can't tolerate that much horny fan art of you online?
I mean, I could. I'm just not sure, like, what level of sentience we're talking about here with Vocaloids. I feel like Tao is, like, the exception to the rule. Everyone else is, like, coding, so...
And Tao did mention they had some sort of community on their world, at least. I don't know if they were all supposed to be performing AI, but there are other things that had seeped into the world of cognition or whatever is going on with Tao.
I hope Tao has friends.
There's at least Mew and Tiki that we know of. So there's at least two other constructs that have existed in the psychic and digital space.
If being a Vocaloid came with all of the autonomy of being a human being, just without like the having to eat and sleep and take care of the basic bodily functions, then yes, absolutely.
I already got the song part, so I guess the rest wouldn't be that bad. But What did we all think of when we were discussing what we wanted? Either we wanted Lone's hope back or we wanted something from Alraune. How did we feel about the Master's explanation of how things pass through this world of the Lost?
I was a little disappointed. Explicitly, he said, this is not an underworld or an afterlife or anything. It's like, but it kind of is, because at some point you are completely forgotten. I guess if a world has an afterlife, then you are also forgotten in there. You might make your way into the world of the Lost.
The question is purgatory an afterlife, or is it just a temporary status, even though that temporary might be eternity? Is that where you're destined to go, or is it something else?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like all souls do have to pass through the world of the Lost. Plus, part of the explanation was this place doesn't always exist. This is a place that was brought into existence by our shenanigans.
Our shenanigans.
I didn't do any. I was pulled here.
Yeah, I was like, I did not have any knowing involvement in this.
Pony was minding her business deep in the woods.
This is all Thanos' fault.
I mean,
Fair.
With that cog in place, it seemed like somebody had plans for us. We've messed up time already. It could be that we had plans for us.
I haven't messed up time. Somebody else might have messed up time, Smog.
Speaking of, I do remember you saying, I don't remember making that disc.
It wasn't as concrete as that. It was Smog saying, like, well, I could have placed this, but why would I? What do we think of some representation of us being printed on the cog?
Fan art.
We're obviously super popular millennia ago.
Great.
You wouldn't have heard of us.
Yeah. We were deep underground for a while. I have to think about it. I haven't fleshed out a lot of this in a series backstory, so I haven't really gotten to it yet, but I don't know what weight I want to put on prophecy for that culture. It feels weird, but it also feels necessary too. So I haven't really come to that point. So at this point, I'm kind of playing it off as a series. Not shocked to see a prophecy involving her, but she is shocked to see a prophecy this specific.
Right. It has all of us as characters on the disc, so I think I'll have a better understanding of it once I understand more about how the worlds themselves work, and if there's a unifying theme between like all the worlds. So is there going to be a theme between like the world of spirit versus the world of ages versus the world of the lost? Like, what is the connecting thing?
Well, right now it seems to be the world of the lost, right? Because all of the other worlds we haven't been to yet are allegedly connected to there. There's like some weird splinter cell of it.
Basically, I don't think I understand enough about the world of ages to understand how a cog with depictions of us would come to be there.
That hits some things in place to me, thinking of the world of the Lost as the connective tissue between Sequence Charter and the worlds we're going to, because it is a place that should not exist and was brought into existence as far as the Master is explaining it to us. So for this universe, that is also true for all of us, possibly. Like, we should not exist in the universe of Sequence Charter, and perhaps we are being made real through it. Like, everything is filtering through making unreality reality. And that's why we've messed things up so bad.
Our existence here does not make sense, therefore the world is compensating for us to be here. Thank you, Mage the Ascension. I'm glad you're here too.
Dan knows all that lore. I'm sure it's not going to brain somehow for this.
Well, thank you, Sequence Charter, for bringing us all together where we shouldn't be.
Yay!
Yay! Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Aura.
Some of us, again, Smog, are not familiar with world travel. So you've already done some world traveling before this, but that didn't cause, like, I don't know, whatever sort of chaos we're going through now.
And Smog's method of world travel is different, if this theory is correct. Like, these are worlds that are supposed to be connected. Even Final Fantasy lore has a bunch of different ways that all of the Final Fantasy worlds are connected. So I'm like, it kind of makes sense. I'm going through different Final Fantasy worlds. That's fine. But it's not a way that Smog would be able to use his magic normally. So he wouldn't be able to pull somebody out of a storybook.
pardon if we've discussed this before, but has Smaug faced consequences for his world hopping yet that we know of? Or at least from within the Final Fantasy world? Obviously, we're facing consequences for this universe, but...
Part of Smaug's backstory is that he dips every time there's heat on him. So, explicitly no. He doesn't catch blowback because he runs. And there's something I want to say about Smaug and world hopping, but I think we won't get to it until we return to Sequence Charter, when it becomes a little bit more relevant.
Interesting, because we're all playing with like high-level concepts in each of our characters, so it's fascinating to see how these things sort of string together.
Yeah, everyone has a very established sense of self, which is a lot of the times when you're playing a role-playing game, you kind of figure out who the character is as you're going. But I feel like we all really, thanks to, again, those sessions with Dan at the very start where we hashed out who our characters were, everyone can lean in to what they were talking about very early on.
I think it also has a lot to do with the system, because you are not encouraged to think of yourself as a like weakling who's going to rise in level and become massive and powerful and like unto a god. I mean, that's technically what Smaug did, I guess, but Smaug didn't start out weak. I think a lot of Apocalypse Engine games beg you to think about a character in the story and how this period of time progresses for them more than gaining power. There's also like a lot of like horizontal power moves rather than vertical power moves.
I would also push back a little bit on what you said, Dex, because I had a notion of how I wanted Assyria to act and be, but I didn't have a lot of the idea of like her inner thought processes until probably like 10 or so sessions. And especially with this last session, I figured something out that's very critical.
Right, you did mention that earlier today even.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should mention that guys are acting incredibly strangely, and not speaking at all throughout this session was due to Dee not playing with us this session, and Dan needing to do something with Geyser.
I'm so fascinated with what the ramifications of this is. I hope Dan goes and tells Dee what is going on so that they can continue to play into it. Let me paint a beautiful picture for you here. Geyser was literally walking around on all fours and like acting like a wolf, sort of snuffling, and like they immediately headed straight towards the mechanism room once let free. So some tomfoolery is going on here.
Right, and for my part, I wasn't sure if that was Dan being like, this is what Geyser would do. Geyser would just tell nobody, pretend to be a wolf, run around and like mess up stuff, or if this is some meta concept of Geyser becoming more lost because she wasn't with us in the session, and therefore like acting more like the wolves who would kind of represent the loss of this world. That's what I was worried about.
Someone please refresh my memory, because when Geyser did the mental link, did they take no unintended consequences as part of the spell? I don't remember.
I believe so, but that's not something I would put in my notes, so it's not something I can refer to.
If there was unintended consequences, this could certainly be one.
You must pay for your war crime.
If Dan was to pilot your character as an NPC, what do you think he would do, or what would you want to happen?
Earlier on when we were fighting the beast, I was a little disappointed that Dan didn't take the reins a little bit from me. I come from my background with Vampire being my favorite system, so as a DM or ST in that system, I'm used to, when you're character frenzy, I'm used to taking over your character and having them do horrible bestial things. So I was kind of hoping that Daniel, when inflicted by that feral nature from the beast onto Assyria, I was hoping he would do that a little bit, but he opted quite generously to give me a little bit more control over that. So I did lean into it at that point. But I really just want him to go feral, because again, Assyria is a wild animal. I cannot stress this to you enough. What about y'all? What do you think you would want Dan to do if they had the NPCify you?
Oh my god, just have fun.
I can't tell what's funnier if he has me double down on saying, I really am a unicorn. Smaug doesn't know what he's talking about. Or be completely like, you know what? I'm not a unicorn, but I can do this, this, and this magic. Because when Pony figured out that she wasn't a unicorn, it set her back a little bit.
It sounds like everybody wants there to be like consequences for Dan coming in that they have to come in and deal with later.
I love consequences for my ill-advised actions in role-playing games only and not in real life. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I come to my role-playing games for consequences. I don't want them in the real world.
Are you kidding me? I was in control of this fucked up fantasy. I don't want to deal with actual consequences that affect the rest of my life. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I want to experience growth and change in my fantasy world. Let's keep my real world stagnant, unchanging. Don't need big waves. It's fine. I come to my fantasy world for a singularity of purpose and to experience growth and friendship along the way. If only life was so simple as go find the world's core.
Just start digging. You'll find it.
Start talking to some world leaders.
Oh no.
If only the world leaders would just trust me with like this monumental task. Not caring whether or not I really succeed or not. That's what I want.
Oh, I'm realizing I said nothing about Smog, so Dan really enjoyed doing the cowboy Smog voice.
Yeah.
So I think he'd want to take the more New Yorker voice and do something like some other spin on it and like be a parallel Smog for a session or however long I'd be gone.
Counterpoint, what if Dan did a third crazy accent, completely different from the first two?
That would be interesting. So you're saying no ASMR voice and no Smog like this.
Italian Smog.
Dan changed it every time.
Oh, fuck. Oh, so this is like my perfect Mass Effect adaptation scenario where in every scene or possibly every cut we have a different Shepard. Instead, we have a different Smog voice every sentence.
Oh my god.
Yeah. One of you will be voiced by Jennifer Hale. The other one will be voiced by Matt Mercer. It'll be great.
Matt Mercer. Oh, no.
Can you imagine?
Pay everybody for a bunch of cameos, string together some Smog sentences.
Oh my god, actually, that's hilarious.
Are you stealing this idea for the next time you GM something? You're gonna go on Cameo and get some NPC voice work.
That would be so funny.
I tell you this out of desperate concern for my own well-being, but Dan really wants to get a voice modulator.
Oh.
I don't know. I would be fine. This is a joke, but I don't know if I would be fine listening to him go and then change his voice every 5 minutes.
I planted a horrible seed by using the Discord text-to-speech for robotic voices.
He's been thinking about this for a long time. I'm just waiting for him to pull the trigger and find one.
So it is sad that Smog can't drag people along with him when he's going stealth mode, but I was very happy to see that interaction with Assyrian Pony sneaking up to the mechanism room separately.
That was fun. I enjoyed that thusly. Because Smog cannot hide all 10-foot long of Assyria's body, plus however many hands of tiny horse that Pony is, they had to find their own way up into the mechanism room. So Assyria's like, okay, it's dark outside. I can be in the dark. I can be the dark. Let's go hide outside and then go the long way in. Carolyn, how did this adventure make you feel?
It was surprisingly easy for Pony. I was expecting Pony would trip up more and accidentally stomp her hooves, and I would have to roll a couple times to be invisible, or not invisible like a Siri, but blended into the darkness. I'm still trying to figure out ways that Pony can cast magic on her own, because she has Smog and a Thanos and a Siri trying to like help teach her magic. I kind of feel like she still hasn't really unlocked her own innate magical abilities. Like she doesn't yet have a go-to spell to get her out of trouble.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why it was fun to bounce off of you back and forth, because I was like, okay, Pony and I are both limited by our anatomy, so that's something I can relate to and understand. So I was like, well, if Pony's going to help Assyria do a spell, what would they be able to do? And I was like, oh, they can keep time in a rhythmic fashion with my musical nonsense. Great. Pony, stomp your hooves, please.
Yes. Pony no longer has the horseshoes on, so she can't tap dance, but the stomping she do.
We also got a line that made me go like, hell yeah, which was Pony saying, I think something along the lines of like, I'll be the dark, I'll be the nightmare.
It was so good. Yeah, because the series like, hey, I'll carry you. It's not an issue. I just need you to, like, focus yourself on being enraptured in complete abyssal darkness as a separate entity from this creepy, oppressive darkness that the World of Ages has, so that we can blend in a little bit more. And Pony was just like, yeah, nightmare time.
Absolutely. When Pony sets her mind to something, she goes all in. Very serious, 100%.
Do you think Pony was scared in that moment, or, like, excited, or...
Definitely more excited. In that moment, she was not really scared. She was more like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so cool, so I can't mess this up.
She's also like wet and outside. It's hard to feel more negative emotions than that when you're in the situation, I think. You gotta hype yourself up, get the adrenaline.
That's very true. She was getting a little bit chilly in the cistern and had to back out, but now she's inside. She'll dry off soon enough. It's fine.
That was fun with Smog having to try to find a Siri in the darkness. I don't know what your plan was there.
So I wasn't expecting the mechanism room to be closed. I was just like, I'm going to sneak up the normal way through the hallways, and if the door was closed, I would just open it. I wasn't expecting Lone to be there, but we're like, oh shit, Lone is there and Geyser's running off, so I'm going to try to head off in case that causes an issue. But no, the door was closed. Lone was in the room, so it's like, I guess I have to find the same way that Asiri and Pony got in because they had to go around the outside. So it was convoluted, and that's honestly why I didn't even put that part in the summary, because it all kind of boiled down to, and then Smog went the same way as the other two.
That is true.
I just thought it was sweet that you're like, oh crap, I gotta warn these two that Lone's inside.
Not necessarily that Lone's inside, but the Geyser is coming, and then and then Athenos just opens the door and lets Geyser.
Yeah, I thought that was our plan! I thought we were gonna let her distract Lone.
To be fair, as we were talking about it, that was the plan. However, we didn't talk about the possibility of Lone already being in the mechanism room. And I do wonder if Dan knew that we wanted to go right back there and put the body there on purpose, and was like, I will also have Lone there. And that was not railroading, but using the pieces that we wanted to try to construct another scene.
Yeah.
Because it was perfect.
It was the one thing we didn't account for. It's like, god damn it, because you think he would be like on the rooftops firing missiles into the snow, but no, he's having a somber meditative moment that Athenos destroyed.
We killed the wolves too good.
We did.
They had too much downtime.
And look, Lone had it coming, all right? There's so many secrets. They are the one living entity, at least living sentient entity that we've encountered this whole time, and they've been playing their cards very close to their chest. And I'm just saying, like, Athenos was, like, done with it.
Do you want to explain, like, exactly physically what happened?
Okay, sure. Lone, our sentient robot friend, in quotes, was meditating or doing something in the mechanism room, perhaps paying respect to his dead priestess friend, which we didn't know at the time that's who she was. But Athenos ran into the mechanism room, picked up Lone, smacked him on the head, and then, like, dragged him outside of the mechanism room for questioning.
It was beautiful.
It was bullying, is what it was.
You were a bully. In one fell swoop, you scoop that creature.
I punched that robot for its lunch.
I really want to know what Athenos' thought process, other than you're being shifty, I need answers now. Because Lone is deaf, bro.
Well, I feel like that was part of the joke for a while, is that, like, Athenos was just talking this whole time. And I don't even know if, like, Athenos, like, recognized that Lone was deaf so much as, like, everyone else used the iPad to, like, help Athenos communicate. So I don't know if, like, Athenos ever truly realized that Lone was, like, incapable of hearing what he was saying. Someone was translating for him every time. I thought it'd be funny if Athenos just didn't notice that Lone was deaf because he was responding reasonably well to what was being said and responding with, like, text-to-speech.
And part of the more finicky details of this scene are Lone not understanding what's happening at first because they can't hear Athenos, and then Smog invisibly passing off the tablet to Tau to translate again.
Oh my god, that was the funniest thing too, because, like, the way Zach played Tau in that moment was just like, iPad, sweet.
Oh my gosh, what was so funny to me, when I pulled Lone outside for questioning, and obviously Lone had no idea what was going on, and Dan just went like, the first thing Lone was able to say with text-to-speech was, "What's going on?" And I was just like losing it. So yeah, the whole thought process was, Thanos needs to distract Lone, and what better way to distract someone from being in the room where we needed to be than to physically haul the person away from what they were doing and like changing the location of a scene.
And that was sort of from this telephoned hint that Smog was like, just get them out of the room. And then Tao had to figure out how to get that to Thanos. And Thanos was like, I'm just going to roughly grab them and drag them right out of the room. That begins this parallel scene where we're hounding Lone for more information. And then we have people investigating the chamber more and starting the ritual.
A dark and gloomy ritual that I am involved in. How delightful.
I don't think there's been a ritual that you haven't been involved in.
That's true.
Listen, I am a creature of simple pleasures. Anytime there's shenanigans going on that require deep, long-term planning magic, that's where I am.
Hopefully when the second edition of this game comes out, they have something akin to Big Magic, like Monster of the Week, which I've never played, but I have heard the Mackle Boys play.
I wanted to ask you, Carolyn, as you're trying to do ritual magic, Smog's figuring out how this clock works, what is Pony thinking in this moment? Because there's not a lot of stuff that Pony could do because of a lack of hands and a lack of true magic understanding. How was the mental space for you there?
Pony always saw herself using more like telekinetic magic, like aiming her unicorn horn at something and having it float up to like her mouth or throw it at an opponent or something like that. She's really feeling the limitations of her body.
I feel like Psychoglass offers a lot of opportunities to do stuff like that. Pony will have a lot of opportunity to learn more, and it's something that Smog has probably dropped being away from Sequence Charter for so long. Maybe that is going to be the defining magic for Pony.
I think it is too. So versatile. I mean, if nothing else, that's going to be her go-to.
You were mentioning earlier, Alex, that Interstitial and the Powered by Apocalypse games as a whole allow you to just kind of be powerful at the start and then make a bunch of lateral progression. Mm-hmm. So I think what's really cool about Pony's character is that Carolyn is specifically like limiting the things that she can do, because she could choose to be more powerful, but she's limiting her character so that she can experience a traditional power growth, perhaps, as we're going through the campaign. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. I was very inspired by stuff like shonen anime and the like, where you have to like work towards your goals, and that makes it all the more rewarding at the end. And I also kind of wanted Pony at least to be more character driven, like, okay, so she can't just beat the bad guy. How is she going to work around it? Is she going to have to outsmart them? Is she going to have to rely on someone else for a second?
It's something I appreciate about that perspective as well, is you can choose how you want to frame your limitations narratively. There are two of us who can basically fly, and nobody else can really. And that's not really an issue of balancing or anything. And I'm trying to avoid things that are not too embedded in Final Fantasy magic for Smog. You get to choose what you care about for the limitations and work from there narratively, instead of always having to be like, what ability do I need to scrounge for to do this specific thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can sort of carve your own path through the narrative you kind of want to explore. And I think Powered by the Apocalypse games are a great tool to do that.
I think this game in particular, too, because it works with the idea of genre mashing. It's hard to be too specific about what the origin of power is for any given ability.
And having played two games relatively soon succession after each other, my last character was a mage, but was like, no, using magic hurts me, so I don't want to do it. But now this character, Azir, is just like, magic's just part of, like, that's not even a word, that's just what I can do. It's so intrinsic to my being. It's so cool to like jump back and forth between those two different types of power scales, or up to a Thanos' power scale where it's like absolutely world-rending, or down to Pony's where it's like very minimal.
It's funny because I feel like both Pony and Thanos are often our comedic relief, but they do have this very different idea of power scale. And I think that plays into their comedy.
I specifically wanted Pony to be like a mishmash of contradictions. Like, she has such a sad and lonely backstory. That's why she goes like super hard trying to make friends in this world and trying to be funny.
It's hard to have a character who's based on Shrek who isn't somehow funny, even if they don't mean to be, too.
Yeah. There's also just something inherently funny about a talking animal, like an animal that is in the real world.
Yeah.
There's so many horrifying implications that you can choose to embrace a little bit, just enough to get the joke, and then gloss over.
Yeah.
Alex, when you had Smog sort of coasting around the room, can you describe a bit of the insight that Alexander gave you about this timekeeping apparatus?
Right, so it has tendrils elsewhere. There's bits of mechanism going to other places. But I don't know if that's important, because I sort of asked, like, how do I access these other things? And the answer was more, well, you might not need to, because here's the place to slot the cog. If getting to these other places isn't important, but it has sprawling mechanics, that makes me think that Dan was trying to impart, like, this is going to have massive implications. This is something that touches a lot of different parts. I don't know, it might touch the entire world of ages. Also looked over the body to see, why was she recently deceased? Why would using an arise spell like he wanted to be possible? It seemed to be due to the influence of the master. This wasn't like the body was lost while it was recently deceased. This is something the master did purposely for us because they want us to enjoy spoils for finding the body parts and keep doing that.
There has to be other implications to this. No creature is that benevolent.
That's what you think, but the master's just a good fella. Just a fucked up little guy. Yeah, I don't feel like the master has done anything particularly untrustworthy thus far.
Yeah, if I'm worried about anything, it's more her nature. Like,
perhaps losing your organs and still surviving is a little sus, but I mean, like,
when you're a metaphysical concept, these things get kind of strange.
They didn't even become like aware of themselves as a construct until they lost all their organs, right? Or 5 of their organs, excuse me. It's just so many. It seems like all.
It's the 5 most important ones.
Yeah, my worry is if we go on with the idea of we're all being brought in through things that shouldn't exist through the world of the lost, does getting the master back and operational re-solidify the world of the lost not existing and poof us all out? What are the implications of them being complete again?
We just received a taste of exactly what the master could do. Freeing a near-perfect corpse. And who knows how long it's been since Alraune died, so who knows what they did to this body to put them in that state. But they apparently already have a very strong grasp of power, and to restore them back to full power gives you infinite possibilities and infinite terrible things.
I don't think this is the case, but I would laugh so hard if the master was just like this throwaway character that Dan had for like one session to interact with Smog, and then it just like turned into this huge thing that we like built up in our heads, and obviously like became much more plot centric now. But like, I wonder if they just had like very humble beginnings.
It's like if we took Dr. Acula through the rest of the story.
As I'd say, I don't think we had an NPC that's blown up like that, but we did latch on to Dr. Acula enough to force them to be named.
I mean, we also did that with Toroid as well.
I thought Toroid had a name.
No.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
We tortured that poor boy into being a named PC.
Tortured him into a promotion.
Torturoid.
Oh, that poor creature.
And on the other side of things, we did get plenty of good information out of Lone with Tau and Athenos interrogating them, basically.
That we did. It worked. Only it works.
Right.
I think that's good for like CEOs. I don't know. Well, Lone is kind of a CEO, aren't they?
No.
No? But what do we think about those revelations? Alraune was a priestess. We have a name for this goddess who seems to be involved in the cycle of life and death.
It fits thematically, but we don't have the exact reason as to why Lone doesn't want it to start yet. And that's the kind of missing piece that bugs me. And the one thing that Dan told us here in a deep dive was like, if you're going to restart this mechanism to restart the ages, you have to do it right. And I'm so scared if that's the missing piece that we don't have.
This is the first we're even hearing of a god of this world. At least, I don't think we heard anything about it before the last session.
I feel like Dan gave me a hint with how Asiri interpreted that first connection with the spirit of this world. It wasn't explicit, and I think those pieces have sort of tied together, but I still think we're missing that center piece in the puzzle.
One would also naturally be hesitant to share that information given their goals here. They seem explicitly against the idea of a cycle continuing. They just want everything to end. Maybe Alraune is a secret agent of a god of entropy or something.
Look at these gods of high-level concepts.
You're up here like, I like hunting and reading.
Hunting, reading, war. I'm into all those things.
Clearly, Alraune holds some reverence towards Alraune, so if they were antagonistic to them, I feel like it was either by accident or being forced to. I don't know that they would treat that room the way they would with such reverence if there was either some regret or if they didn't have a very strong connection to her.
Yeah, there could be more the thought of all the people have let the goddess down. I can't let the people abuse that concept anymore, which sticks in a lot with Smog's background, because I think there's supposed to be a lot for all of us to filter into these different world experiences.
There's a lot of thematic ties in all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been really impressed about Dan's GMing, because this is the first time he's GM'd. And I feel like he's found such a wonderful way of bringing together a lot of the core concepts that our characters embody, creating like miniature worlds out of them. He did a really good job.
I thought you were about to say spaghettifying, and I was like, that's actually not a bad word for what's happening here.
I mean, I could have said spaghettify. Just spaghettify. Please just go throw that back. It's back in there somewhere.
It's like all of our character backgrounds got spaghettified, and then different strands of spaghetti got braided together.
And then we each got a meatball.
Hell yeah.
All covered in cheese.
And then we all lost it, I guess.
But the master found it, so I guess it works out.
Imaginary meatball.
That's one of Geyser's friends.
A meatball made out of psychoglass sounds horrible.
I mean, you could then shape it into whatever you want. So you can make it like a chicken nugget, like a dinosaur shape.
Dinosaur nuggies!
I don't know, the concept of like molding any sort of psychic glass into food sounds horrendous.
But Sierra has drank it in front of us.
And Asiri lives in it.
Yeah, it's in her body, and she's not too happy about it, but she's dealing.
Yeah, again, horrific. Dangerous.
I think you only need a little bit to move around the meat how you want it.
I don't like that sentence.
We did see some statues coming in here. I wonder if one of those was of Cyclia or something, because I think one of them was described as a woman like holding a circular object.
What I remember was it was two women like facing each other. So it could be the same goddess, but two aspects because cycles turn round. There's a lot of gods in mythology that have multiple faces or multiple bodies because they embody many of these aspects.
Or two sides of something that's opposing. Oh, that makes me think, how fun would it be to play like a Nega Smog for a session or something? What would that be like?
Nega Smog.
Like evil Smog or like the inverse of Smog?
Good Smog. Well, for old Smog, good Smog. For now, I don't know how you would. Maybe I could bring in like Baby Smog, who's just been abandoned and is like trying to make his way in the world and hasn't found juice yet.
Baby Smog makes him sound like part of a girl group.
That would be awesome if young Smog has an Agretsuko past where he was forced into a rock band.
What?
There's one point in Agretsuko where she's forced into an idol group, and then
because she owes a guy money,
they figure out that she's really good at metal singing, and then she has to be like the metal face of the idol group.
Me.
What would y'all's Nega characters be like?
Wouldn't you like to know?
This is the opposite of Asiri.
Oh my gosh. Bubbly. Can read. Is not interested in any miracles. Runs straight towards any light source. Is a moth. Done.
Hilarious. And I love that, but for different reasons. The opposite of Siri would be her sister.
ooh,
Tina LaFey.
The opposite of pony would be a lazy little paddock puff who doesn't want to do anything.
Just a little ball.
Yeah, just a little ambling ball. She'll be like, oh, I don't know about all that unicorn stuff, but look at this tasty grass. Why do we have to fight? Why can't we all just get along? Oh, it's okay if I don't get that. I'll be fine without it.
Happy being a show, but only if the show is like lazing around and not actually performing anything.
Exactly. She'll wear the feathers and beads, but do not make her jump through those hoops.
What is the anti-Thanos?
Completely uninvested in the lives of people. Probably a lot of order, so a lot of law, strict, and not competitive whatsoever.
Oh, so we're not just going with straight up your sister, because competitive.
No. She probably has a lot of his qualities, honestly. And he doesn't
Yeah, that's
like that.
fair if I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, but the big one is probably like socially distanced from mortals.
Hephaestus. Got it.
Yeah, I was thinking that a little bit, but I'm thinking maybe more like a deity of secrets. Like, you don't want the people to have this.
Hecate. Got it.
Yeah, or like
Ooh.
Jesus.
What did you say?
Or like Jesus. He made like one big thing for like 32 years, and we haven't seen him for like the other millennia. So pretty hands off as far as I'm concerned.
I would love to see somebody play some version of Jesus in Interstitial.
That was so wild. Hi, my name's Dexter. I'm playing Jesus from the Bible.
I'm playing Jesus from Persona. He's got to show up there at some point, right?
Yes. Looking at you, Persona 3. Speaking of miracles, the series does try one at the end there. And you know the worst part is, Dan said it should have worked. She did everything right, but that chick's still dead, yo.
And it's weird because Dan specifically said that the spell did not fail. There just was no change in the corpse's movements or condition.
Yeah, a realization that I've had later on here is that magic seems very important in this world, and worlds that are more cognitively based or that are higher magic don't just have to be dreamlands like the World of the Lost. Magic and concepts could be really important in the like physical world, in the World of Ages. I think something with the Wheel of Rebirth is so broken that people just cannot even be born anymore.
That makes a lot of sense, especially considering the floral concept that Dan said as the spell was going through, that Asiri was going through all these motions and seeing all these things and cycles move forwards and such. Everything should have worked as she had intended, but there's just either a major blockage or some disconnect that prevented the completion of her intended effect. And I think you're right. I think that does have to do with we are so disconnected from Cyclia, something terrible has happened, or this world is just so stuck in its ways that you can't progress until we turn the gears on.
Is that why Lone isn't a person? Because a person, other than someone who's forced their way in, cannot exist here, cannot be born into the world?
See, I don't know, because as the Master said, nothing of Lone's has ever passed through the World of the Lost. They've never lost anything. So that's perplexing. Lone probably lost their stick at some point. They lost their scarf, whatever. Why is nothing of their presence missing?
Because it's not missing, because Lone purposefully set that stuff aside and knows where it is, knows how to go back to it, but chooses not to, is my interpretation of that.
You're right, and I'm mad about it.
Really? Oh, my interpretation of it was that because we were like, where is Lone's hope, right? My interpretation was that Lone hadn't lost hope yet. And that's why we weren't able to find anything from them. Wow. Wild.
There can be very different interpretations of that, but it's hard for me to see Lone as hopeful, given the responses we've got. So it's more to me like, Lone purposely put that somewhere else. But maybe there's a little spark in there.
Very curious about all those like wooden puppets, all those hearts. There's a lot going on in this world.
There's a lot going on, and we're so close to figuring it out. And I'm just like, what is that missing puzzle piece? What is that last piece of data we need? What are we missing?
It's so funny to me that if we really wanted to and our characters were in our overheads, we could just leave and decide to deal with this another day.
Yeah, because that's literally what Dan said to me at some point. He was like, all right, Asiri, you know this. You either have to do this right or leave and come back. Or just leave. Those are your two choices.
Yeah, that was a response to how you keep everyone safe. And he's like, well, you could leave. Yeah, I guess that's an option. But we do eventually have to come back if we want to get everybody home.
Yeah, I love it. I love the drama. I love the nerves. And I particularly enjoyed that last scene with the spell with Asiri, because at that point in time, she was kind of drifting from her beliefs in a lot of the abyssal stuff and a lot of the things she was raised with. Now those things have been cemented. The problem is now her and her mind.
Oh, no, baby.
And I think that was a very pivotal moment for Asiri.
All right, are we good to wrap up here?
All right, well, what would you have done differently then?
At the start, I might have either not butt in and be like, hey, let's wait to get through the rest of the party when we're talking things out, because that could have changed the conversation a little bit. Or I would have been harder about, because I was trying to move the conversation towards Smog needs to get reacquainted with these people that he knew and remember where in time they are, because he might have seen some of these people die, even of old age, much, much later, or just become radically different people throughout the ages. So it's trying to get in maybe a little more of a personal conversation, and we just set on moving before that happened.
I think Pony would have tried to interact with Geyser just a little bit more, because Geyser always acts randomly, but this was still just a touch weirder than Geyser's normal. It was weird in a different way than the normal weird.
That's also what I wanted to say. Investigate a little bit more about why she was behaving the way she was. I get that I feel she wouldn't tell us still, but maybe I would have gotten a better idea of whether or not she was play acting being a wolf and just being disruptive, or something weird's actually going on with her.
None of us thought to do a deep dive, I guess.
No.
We did one deep dive. I think it was Asiri who did it last session. We are big on cast magic. Very low on deep dive.
Now that I'm thinking about that, that's pretty different from other games I've played, because I've had a lot of players who, because I've mostly GM'd this game, didn't invest in that much in mastery, but always have questions about what's going on. So it'd just be deep dive, deep dive, deep dive. And this is a very different experience playing the game.
Yeah, I think Asiri might be the most speculative or considering of the scene at hand, mostly because she will die if she does not think about it. She's not a very rash person. Yeah, everyone else is yeah, let's go.
Or are very sure of their initial analysis of the situation.
That's true.
Whereas Asiri is much more questioning, open to different interpretations of things.
The one thing I wanted, and I understand why Dan did this, when the Master kicked all of us out of the World of the Lost with their lovely flute, I was secretly hoping that they would keep me so that we could talk for a second, but I understand Dan probably not wanting to split the party after we had split so much, so I didn't protest it or anything, but I want that conversation, and I know I'm going to have it soon, so...
You could even have it as soon as the next time you go to sleep.
That's true.
Just this ritual fucked up. Bye, everybody.
This bitch empty. No, she wouldn't do that. Not that we're this far in. Let's get into the resolution phase, the segment of the show where we each get to say something about the game with no responses. What is your final say on this session, Carolyn?
Pony was surprisingly good at keeping a beat. Maybe all of that time around circus music wasn't that bad for her.
Well, what are your final thoughts, Dex?
My final thoughts are I have no regrets bullying our sentient robot friend. And you can find me on Twitter at DexFanWrites. I am writing a fantasy novel about the orcs in love. So follow me for more of that, and also some trash takes on pretty much everything.
What about you, Alex?
So this is going to be a long one, but I was having a shower thought recently. Zach and I have never played a couple in a role-playing game. So it's it would be super funny going along with that idea of Geyser messing up Smog's memory next time if she becomes a linksmith, that Tau and Smog were involved, and then Geyser fucked that up to stop the Droogle children from existing or whatever, going off of Shrek stuff.
No one's allowed to respond, but what the fuck is
And I just thought I needed to share that with all of you because it was the weirdest thought I've had about this game ever. You can find me on Twitter at Shining Crowbat. I recommend checking out Citizen Sleeper. It is a role-playing game, but more influenced by tabletop role-playing games. I would say it feels a lot like a visual novel with a little bit of resource management. The basic concept of the story is that you are an emulated person living in a cyborg body, and they've emulated a normal human's mind, and you've escaped your corporate overlords and have to make a new life on a space station. You have to keep up this drug that you need to stay stable and keep eating, while also allocating dice that you roll every morning towards different successes on storylines you can progress. It's just very well written, and I technically haven't finished it because the last bonus episode has not been released yet, but I'm excited for more.
And for myself, all I can say is, well, times, they keep on a-changin'. You can find me hosting a year-long ritual at your local coven. This has been Resolve, an afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at ResolveAP.
Except Instagram, which is at ResolveAfterplay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator, Riley Hopkins, at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the description of the episode.
Thank you again for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. Tell us what's happening in your game.